All right, we are live. I apologize to everybody. We're about 20 minutes late. I had some technical difficulties, but here we are on Allegiance Arts and Entertainment live with Nick Amendolara, Kat
Hello.
B, and
Hello.
the illustrious Mike Barron, who we're very honored to have. So, Mike, for those of you that don't know, has been working with us on a little project called The Saints that really isn't so little.
No.
We ran a very awesome crowdfund for this book, beautiful art by Christian Rosado, and it's getting a bit of a second wind on our Nora's Saga campaign. We've actually sold a hell of a lot of books between the two campaigns. We're very excited about that. All of the feedback, Mike, from this book has been phenomenal. So that is awesome and greatly appreciated. And yeah, how you doing, Mike?
Good.
It sounds like you've had a hell of a month.
Yeah. You know, well, I'll mention it. We're doing this graphic novel called Thin Blue Line about two police officers trying to survive the night in a riot torn city. And we got banned by Reddit again, as usual. And all the usual suspects came out screaming and hollering. And every time they do that, the contributions just keep piling up. And the book is completely done. It's ready to go to the printer. So we're happy about that. And if anybody is interested in looking at the book, go to thinbluelinecomics.com. And I have to emphasize that it is straight drama. It's not didactic. It's not a lecture. It's not a speech. It's very entertaining.
Awesome. Well, I know it's very well written. I haven't had a chance to check out the art. I saw you had an awesome cover by Butch Geis
Oh, yeah.
that really caught my eye. So we love Butch here. He's a great fellow. He actually just turned in. We did a cover just a week or so ago for the Futurists with Butch, and Butch always outdoes himself.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, you and Butch go way back, don't you?
Yeah, we worked on the Flash together, and we're working together again right now on Giant Size Two Fisted Tales, which Graham Nolan is publishing.
Yes. Yeah, I know he's working on that right now, actually. I'm excited to see what he produces. And after that, Butch is jumping back into the Futurist for us, finishing episode 6 and completing that first season arc of our title, The Futurist, which will not disappoint. Butch always crushes it. Christian Rosado, Mike, who you are familiar with, I don't know if you knew this, but he is coloring that book for us. And he
Great.
coloring issues 4, 5, and 6 and doing a phenomenal job, as I'm sure you would expect.
Oh, yeah. I was thrilled when I saw his art on the Saints.
You and everybody else, but that really means a lot coming from you. We just hit the jackpot with Christian, and I mean, you talk about a guy that came out of like nowhere and is drawing big league comics like right off the bat. That's him. All right, there's the Thin Blue Line that Kathleen has pulled up for us.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, that's on Kickstarter. So you've raised, let's look at the total, 40,859 on Kickstarter, but you also had an Indiegogo campaign. Is that right,
Yes,
Mike?
we've raised 67,000 on Indiegogo, so the total right now is 108,000.
That's phenomenal.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, it's I'm sorry that you have gone through a bit of a hassle with this, but it seems like it was all worth it, and it doesn't really get your goat up too much, probably.
No, I'm used to it.
Yeah. Well, you just do your own thing, and the audience will find it, and the critics can. I don't know.
Pound sand.
They can pounce sand. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, I was having trouble with finding my words there. Let's see. What else we have, Kathleen? I want to show Mike. I want to show Mike something cool. Something that you turned in today. So Kathleen does design work for us as well as some marketing stuff and desktop publishing and InDesign. And so she came up with these back covers. I don't know if you know Mike, but we do these we like to do really neat designs for our back cover images for our books, and they all kind of match. And Kathleen turned in the 2 for the Saints issues today because we're going to be uploading the Saints to our .com store now that the book is totally fulfilled. We're also going to be releasing the Saints, the 2 episodes on Amazon Kindle as well. And so we show those. That
Nice.
is, yes. So we decided for the nomenclature on the Saints to name each episode, each comic book episode, after the major city that the book takes place in. So episode 1 will be called Kyoto. Episode 2 will be called Kathmandu. So for those that have read it, know the context of all of that. So what Kathleen has done, why don't you explain it, Kathleen? Because I think this is super cool, and you just turn this in as a total surprise.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to go with the globe-trotting nature of our kind of episode titles. And so this is actually, it's like a vector of a map of Kyoto, Japan. And then I've kind of like just textured it and grunged it up and made it look real cool and kind of fit our typical aesthetic of our books. So this will be the back cover of episode 1.
Yep, very cool.
And
we have episode 2.
Yeah, and also real quick, I picked, color palettes kind of based off of the regions too. So this was based off of if you've ever seen like the big giant orange, they look like giant kind of pedestal temples. And there's like gates that go down. So I kind of pulled from that color palette for this Kyoto one. And then let's see 2. Let's see. And then this will be Kathmandu. Oh, here it goes.
There it is. That one is so cool. I like both of them.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is again, it's a Kathmandu.
Is that a map of the city?
Yeah. So this is like a GPS map basically of Kathmandu, Nepal. And then I just kind of went with it's colors from their flags, and then it's also kind of a mixture of colors from like their prayer flags that you'll see around Tibetan temples.
That's just rad. I freaking love it. It's I don't know. I could go on about it, but I like how abstracted it is, and it takes you a minute to figure out exactly what you're looking at. But then the fact that it adds a whole kind of context and to the book is super cool. Anyway, great job, Kathleen.
Thank you.
I don't want to necessarily turn our AAE lives into afternoon meetings, but sometimes they go that way because, we all work remotely. So show and tell is always fun. So why not show it with everybody?
Yeah.
So, Nick, did you have questions for Mike?
I do actually. In addition to your Two-Fisted Manly Tales and Thin Blue Line, rumor has it you're working on Nexus with none other than Kelsey Shannon. Is that true?
Oh, that's true. In fact, the first issue already shipped. Let me see if I can find a copy here.
There you go. Yeah, let's let people know where they can find that book too.
It's in my other room. I should have a copy here, but it's great. It's the first of a 3-part series that Richard Meyer solicited, and Richard was looking at our campaign. And he says, "Well, you guys can do this better than me." So I believe that I'm going to publish the next 2 issues myself with Kelsey. Kelsey's on board, and Dark Horse will eventually package them all together as a graphic novel and release it.
That's awesome. So Kelsey's doing like a 2-issue, is it like a 48-page, 3 issues?
3 issues, 20-page stories each. I always write 24 pages unless anybody asks me to do otherwise, because that's what I think a comic book story length should be. But it's infinitely malleable because each page is a blank slate, and you can use it for 1 image or you can use it for a dozen images.
Mm-hmm. I like 24 as well. Although, when you're running, the 20-page stories don't cut it for me. They always feel really clipped, and I've tried to design 20-page stories before, and I'm sure you have, Mike, and found a similar frustration.
Not mine.
No, all your personal stories, 22 or above. Yeah.
Well, if I get to set the number of pages, they will be 24 pages. But Richard only requested 20 page per story, and I assure you, it's a complete story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And no one's going to feel shortchanged because I just write to the length. I know how to do that. I understand the form, and I understand story.
If you had some advice, like maybe for younger talent, younger professionals that are entering the writing sphere, that are like, writing to to a 20-page story length, or even a 22 or a 24, what kind of guidance would you give someone who is just starting out at like Marvel or DC or an independent company?
Well, I think that any serious writer has to carry a note tablet with them at all times, and to fill it up with your notes on your story. And they don't have to be profound, and they don't have to be right on target. The point is to get to a critical mass where you can see the whole story. And from there, you can proceed to an outline. Now, when I started writing comics, I would just wing it. I would sit down, I would draw the page out in this notepad, and then I'd draw the first panel, and then I'd think, well, what's compelling here? How do we start this story? What would be interesting?
Mm-hmm.
And that method, and I drew every panel out. I'm not a good artist, but I'm good enough that anybody can see at a glance what I'm doing. And that taught me very many valuable lessons. How much weight a page can contain, how much dialogue, how many captions. But most importantly, it taught me to think about what happens next, which is the essential question in all fiction. And the reader has to care what happens next before they turn the page. So I didn't just say, well, here's a page of fight scenes. I'll leave it up to you, Big Jack. No. And fight scenes in particular have to be carefully choreographed.
Of course.
But also to make sure that I dole my words out like a miser, like Scrooge McDuck. I don't want to cover that page with text, and I want the dialogue to count. And I want the dialogue to be original, which is another reason you carry a notepad and keep your ears open, because you'll hear people use colloquialisms, phrases you've never heard before that you understand. And if you have an opportunity to use that in a book, do it. But if you ever find yourself writing, I don't think we're in Kansas anymore, or move it, people, or we have to talk, scribble that out and start again. Find an original way to say it. But I always say every would-be writer has a million words of bullshit clogging up his system, and you have to get that out before you get to the good stuff. So my advice is to write every day. I write every day. It may not be 1,000 words, although when I'm writing a novel, I try to write at least 1,000 words per chapter. But I'm always making notes, and I always have that notepad with me.
Awesome. Well, I think you've just given everyone a writer's suppository.
Thank you, GK1.
Yeah, GK1 comments Punish #1, written by Mike Barron, or Mr. Barron, as he affectionately calls you, was my very first comic book purchase. So that's awesome. I certainly have a few in my collection, even before I knew Mike, as does a lot of people. Let's see. Christina Lynn is in the chat. Christina is our proofreader for all of our books, including The Saints. So Mike, she had the pleasure of reading all your work and making sure everything was fit and finished. So I don't know if you've met Christina, but she's super awesome.
Hello, Christina. I hope to meet you in person one of these days.
Yeah, I'm sure you will. So what else we got? Nick, you got any other?
I do. Going back to the Thin Blue Line, when will that hit fulfillment?
I think we're going to start shipping in March. We're ahead of time. We are way ahead of schedule.
That's awesome. That's rare, but getting better for crowdfunding as everybody sort of figures out the system, the new way of doing business.
Well, we never felt it would blow up this big until people started shrieking. But I have to point out that our penciler, Joe, is a full-time police officer. And he still finished the book faster than many professionals.
That's awesome. Definitely faster than me. Here we go.
Oh. Now we're back to the Indiegogo one here.
Oh, the Indiegogo is 67,330.
That's extraordinary.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Congratulations, Mike.
This is great stuff. So let's talk about the Saints, if you don't mind. If you don't mind me segueing to the Saints.
Yeah.
We did a segment called Take 5, and so obviously it was a very truncated 5-question interview. But when you were contacted to do the Saints. Can you elaborate a little bit on how that came about and how you work with Patrick and Mitch in developing the story?
Well, yeah, Patrick had written, I think, 8 pages to set the stage. But the Saints intrigued me instantly because it's a very realistic story. And I'm at a place in my life where I can't buy into a story, be it a movie, a book, or a comic, unless I believe it could actually happen. Unless, of course, it's like the Flintstones or Daffy Duck or something.
Mhm.
But the Saints posits that there's a secret group of archaeologists who have banded together to protect the world's remaining undiscovered archaeological sites from tomb raiders, looters, and bandits, which unfortunately is all too real because we all remember that 20 years ago, ISIS went into Afghanistan and blew up these magnificent Hindu temples that had been
Mhm.
carved from rock. So it's a real problem. And the dwindling number of archaeological sites that have not been discovered, we pray for them that they will be, if they are discovered, they'll remain intact. And sometimes we pray that they will never be discovered. But opposing the Saints is another secret group that seeks to rule the world. And they want to do this by controlling the past to shape the future. And they have a technology which can transmute devices back through time. A living person can't travel through time, but they can send a device back to ancient Sumeria, for example. And they've studied Sumeria, so they know what that society is like and what will trigger their buttons. And so when the device is found in ancient Sumeria and the Sumerians open it up, to them, it must seem like magic or religion. Of course, they're not familiar with our technology. And in that way, they can affect the Sumerian mindset. And also, the technology will take over unsuspecting people. It's kind of like a cybernetic virus that creeps in and starts to take over your body and inculcate you with the values and the direction of
Well, they're shaping. Well, they're shaping a
the
future
four.
of their own liking, I guess.
Right.
And the characters within the Saints are living in a world that has been shaped by these entities or this entity. Um, and
Yeah, the group is called the Forge.
the Forge and the Children of the Forge. Yes.
Yes.
So it's an overarching villains of the Saints, and is something that may actually touch other parts of the Allegiance Arts universe. As for those who might be interested in exploring that through some of our other books, and I don't want to give too much away, but then LaPointe is like the guy who is just fringe enough and just passionate enough with just enough resources to like start to figure out this puzzle that the reality that they're living in and experiencing is a miss.
You're speaking of Jean-Marc Lapointe.
Yes.
He's an interesting character because he's kind of a rogue archaeologist. Some people call him a tomb raider and a publicity hound. But in fact, he's a very learned archaeologist who's enthusiastic about his work. And so he comes across as a bit of a pop archaeologist, somebody who likes to promote his work, which has earned him the undying enmity of the staid archaeological world, where you don't blow your own horn and you publish your findings in arcane journals with very limited circulation. And people forget the sensation that occurred when Tutankhamun's tomb was discovered in the early 20th century. It was the news spread around the world in a flash.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there was the curse of Tutankhamun, and that many of the people that first investigated the tomb and went into it died unexpectedly, often in dreadful ways. And it made archaeologists stars back in the day. And
Yeah.
And I think that may have affected Jean-Marc to a certain extent, but he's a good guy. I mean, he doesn't want to do it for his own personal enrichment and aggrandizement. He's just an ebullient personality. He's the kind of guy that's got to talk about what he's doing.
So earlier you said something about uploading into society, if I'm correct here. Actually, it's sort of like reminding me of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You have this group that is taking over the personalities. Is this an allegory to something larger, or is this just a straight ahead? I mean,
To me, it was just a straight ahead element of the plot, but I think you could take it as an allegory. And we can look at modern technology today and the people that are glued to the internet, kids at home, especially during this pandemic, that are living their lives vicariously through the internet. And uh, the internet has had a sinister effect on many people. It makes them depressed because you
mhm.
have these characters on the internet who are saying, here I am at this fabulous party, here I am on vacation, here I am enjoying all these riches. And people can't help but compare it to their own lives and say, well, geez, I feel left behind. So they get depressed about that. And we all know that suicides are up during this pandemic. And one of the
Yeah.
reasons is that children and young people need to socialize. They need to get out and do real
Absolutely.
things with real other people. They just can't spend their lives in their rooms. It's not natural.
Yes, and
I think that's true. Yeah, the fear of missing out, and I hate to say it, but it's a form of envy. It's created a subculture of envy, and envy
No
is one
question
of those.
about it.
Envy is one of those out of the 7 deadly sins. Envy is the one that the sufferer partakes of no joy. A
That's right.
glutton can have a good time. Someone who's lusty can have a good time. A guy who's filled with avarice, he can buy whatever he wants. But as a person who's riddled with envy, there's no enjoyment.
I think we also live in a culture that has turned envy into a virtue.
Ah, I
yeah,
agree with that. Absolutely.
yeah, that's nail on head.
And it hides behind lofty sounding names and goals.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just one trip through Twitter, which I don't visit anymore, and have been off for like a couple of years now. But like, that's what was it was making me depressed because it was like using. I don't know. It was like it just made a beast out of envy, in my opinion, and the more envious and bitter you became, the more popular you were on this platform. And I just was like,
Yeah.
whoa, this is sick stuff, and I'm gone. I'm out of
Yeah.
here.
I know we're getting kind of heady, but
Yeah.
we don't have a word. The Germans have a beautiful word called Schadenfreude.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we don't, our closest thing is a frenemy, but it doesn't really describe accurately the idea of Schadenfreude. It's shame at another person's fortune. You know, you feel regret for their good fortune.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's joy at another person's misfortune. And if you actually look up the definition, it is that's why it's like one of those words that is very difficult to translate into English. And it's one of those we should just adopt and keep reminding ourselves that this is a very real thing.
So what about comics, Mike, helps us solve this big, broader societal problems? That's a big question, but I'm going to throw it at you anyway because you've had some really awesome answers to questions today.
Well, in my mind, if the writer's number one duty, I'm talking about comic books and fiction, is to entertain. And I never lose sight of that fact. People want to get absorbed in a story. They want to fall into that story to the exclusion of all else, so that when something interrupts the story, the projector breaks, the feed breaks, somebody says, hey, we're eating dinner, put that book away. The first reaction you feel is resentment because you don't want to be jerked out of that world that you're enjoying. This is assuming that the storyteller knows what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
As for a higher purpose, well, art has always been used for a higher purpose, and there's a way to do it that you don't insult the reader and you don't interfere with their joy. And just look at To Kill a Mockingbird or The Grapes of Wrath, which are two of the most enthralling novels you'll ever read. And you can't put them down. because they, first of all, they're entertaining, but secondly, the authors have a purpose. Harper Lee wanted to highlight racism in the Old South, and Greats of Wrath. Who wrote it?
John Steinbeck.
Yep.
Thank you.
I share a birthday with him. You know I know this.
Pop quiz. Didn't expect a pop quiz, but
Right.
you always got to
And
be.
there are some movies that do that too. I can't think of any recently because most of the movies I see these days that have a message is rather heavy-handed.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right, of course.
And they'll toss you right out of the narrative.
Yes, that's one of the things that I haven't been to the theater in a long time, and I don't want to dunk on like popular movies or anything because there are good ones out there, but I just haven't felt inspired necessarily to run out to the theater. There are a few movies I do want to see that I missed, like 1917 and
That's great.
a few others that looked really promising. But the heavy-handedness of contemporary media in the terms of the messaging is something I've found really off-putting, and it's something that we are trying to build. We're trying to do what we love and tell stories the way that we love them, and we certainly loved the way Mike told stories, and that's why we invited him to do the Saints. And I think why it's been a very successful project. Ultimately, I mean, we have big plans for the Saints. We certainly want to continue that book, and Mike has written six episodes for this. We've completed 2 in terms of the art, and it's people are discovering it that might have missed it the first time around. It was we struggled getting the word out about a book that really should have had a much larger, I'm just gonna be frank, a much larger success. But it's doing extremely well, Mike, because we're selling it as an add-on to the Nora Saga campaign and as a perk on the Nora Saga campaign, and people are gobbling them up, so much so that I might actually have to pull those perks because I only printed so many, right? So if you did miss the Saints and you missed Mike's work on the Saints and you liked what you've heard today about the book and about Mike's commitment to craftsmanship, then I would definitely encourage you to go over to norasaga.com to the Indiegogo and back the Saints book, grab a Nora and a Saints and check it out. Like I said, only limited. We can't print a million of these things, so only a limited number of them remain. And then Kathleen is preparing digital versions for our website and for Kindle, so that will be available to you as well. But you really can't ever beat a hard copy, in my opinion. I like the convenience of digital, but I love
digital smigital.
Yeah, I have to smell paper.
Yeah, and it's a handsome book. I don't mind saying it. It's a gorgeous book, and there it is. Yeah, mine's in my box. I'm afraid of like putting my oily fingers all over it and ruining my copies, so I try.
I know Mike would really like to see this book finished through episode 6, as would we all. So I'm anxious to get Christian Rosato back into production on the artwork. And like I said, Mike, the reviews, I don't know if I've seen any like in-depth reviews, but maybe they're out there. I haven't searched. I don't really do a lot of searching for our stuff necessarily, but the feedback that comes back to me has been incredibly positive. We've got some other physical all the way. Nothing better than a book in your hands, that's for sure.
Yeah, the reader's reception of the book has been nothing short of glowing. I mean, I've not heard a negative word from anybody.
And it was Nick's first book as editor-in-chief for Allegiance Arts. So that was the first thing Nick did with us out of the gate. And so I really appreciate your learning curve was quite steep because Patrick was handling some of that stuff, and Mike was working really closely with Patrick on the script. But everyone did a wonderful job. And Kathleen, for those of you who don't know, she put together the package that you all read and received. The book itself in design and the desktop publishing software. So all those design elements that really stitch the whole piece of fabric all together, that was Kathleen who did that. and did a wonderful job with our design elements and the presentation of that book. So this turned into a butt patting.
High fives all around.
High fives all around. Yeah.
It's funny because you're in the middle of it. You don't always see it. But I've said this like 3-4 times. I'm trying to enjoy the firsts. And to have a book of this caliber is the first one that I get to put my name on as an editor-in-chief as it publishes. It's kind of not real. It just doesn't seem real. It's like, wow, this is a really great book. It's not like
I'm thrilled. I am thrilled.
Yeah, Mike, this book required a specific kind of writer. It couldn't. You just couldn't. I mean, all our books require a specific kind of writer. I believe we write those. We were trying to cultivate a universe of books that need that, but this book needed someone with a deep and passionate knowledge of history and the context, a lot of context to the modern world, and the ability to apply those two things together, while also creating an extremely dynamic and conflict-driven narrative. And Mike was really the perfect call for that. I couldn't think of anybody else for sure.
Thank you, Mitch.
I appreciate it. Well, I know we're running short on time. Mike's got to run in a few minutes to, I think, another interview. You have something on your channel, Mike? Is that what's going on?
We're interviewing Rags Morales.
Super cool. All right.
And that's Baron Earl's show on YouTube. Baron Earl's show.
Baron Earl's show. And what time is
that? It's broadcast every Wednesday afternoon at 6 p.m. Eastern time. But Rags isn't going to be live today. We're going to broadcast this at a later date. I think today we're doing Vail Myerick, which he'll be on.
Oh, wow. You know, he friended me the other day on Facebook. He's like one of my favorites.
That's awesome.
I love a great artist.
I almost fell over.
That's awesome.
I probably shouldn't have dropped his name like that. I don't remember this guy. But it was like so cool. I'm like, oh my God, I remember all this Howard the Duck stuff with Frank Brunner and
you should see his paintings.
I'm trying to remember. I don't know if I have or not. But he's one of those,
yeah, please do.
One of those legends. He's one of those legends that, you know, my comic history ends at like 81 to 83. I just said, you know, I'm kind of tired of what I'm seeing. I wasn't into it, and Spider-Man became ludicrous for me, and that was my favorite. And so now getting back into it, there's all these people that I treasured who are still around, and they've not missed a beat. If anything, they've gotten better, and it's just beautiful. Hey, there's Critical Blast.
Yeah, thanks for stopping in. I appreciate everybody stopping in today. And I'm going to close this out so everybody can go jump on. What's the channel again, Mike?
It's the Baron Earl's channel on YouTube. But as I said, today we're doing Vail Myerick, and he'll be on in a few minutes.
Baron Earl's, okay. And then you're recording with Rags today, and that'll be up on next Wednesday?
No, it'll probably be a week or so after that because we have a couple of more in the can.
That's smart. We need to do in the can recordings. That would be
do that.
Yeah, that would be better for the algorithm, I think, too. And we can edit out all the curse words.
Before we roll, can we make a quick plug for Nora so people know what's going on?
Do that. Kat, can you pull it up, and then we'll close it out with Nora and update everybody on where we're at, and send them a big hug and a kiss.
Yeah.
Sure.
Real quick.
There we go.
Much.
As you know, we're doing the Nora campaign, and we're rounding the corner, and we're at $44,402 and 623 backers. We have 8 days left. We'd like to hit 50K before that time comes. So if you've backed the campaign, yay, thank you. Thank you for joining the tribe. If you have not, please go to the site, check out all the great loot we have. It's definitely fit for the King of Asgard. And more importantly, please spread the word.
Yes, that would be.
Tell everyone how cool this book is. And we're going to have great perks coming and surprises. And there's a lot here. And, of course, it's beautifully drawn by, well, Kelsey Shannon. I don't need to say anymore. It's a handsome book and a great story, and he just dots all the I's and crosses all the T's, and it's stunning.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I got to go.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the words of wisdom. Bye-bye. Yeah, that
Awesome.
Mike is, I was very impressed. Mike had a lot of wonderful things to say. I'm always impressed to talk to Mike, though. So,
who's the uncle from the Forbidden Zone?
I don't know, but is this a movie that someone knows that you don't know, Nick? That's a first.
I know. I'm gonna have to now Google it. I hope it's not like one of those things. I'm like, oh man, not that guy.
Nick is our resident film buff, but
and apparently look-alike.
And a look-alike.
I have a doppelganger.
That's funny.
From that laugh, she knew. Oh no. This is going to be a bad Google search.
Guys, unless you guys had anything else you wanted to show off, I think we're done. I really enjoyed talking with Mike, and I appreciate everyone for tuning in. You guys have any last minute sign-offs?
Yeah, just, hit the like button, hit the share button, get people seeing this and telling them that we're going to be doing these for the next, weeks to come. We'll always announce if there's any changes, and we hope to see you next week.
Absolutely.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Kat. Thank you, Nick. And thank you, Mike, for joining us for a while. Greatly appreciate it. And thank you, audience, for tuning in. Yeah, leave us comments. Let us know what you want to hear from these little broadcasts, and if we can do anything to make them better or add any segments you might like. We definitely want to cultivate a wonderful community with all of you. So peace out. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.